Hello and welcome to You Call It a Classic. And before you say anything, I know. And I'm sorry. Yes, it is annoying to do two of these back to back, especially because I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who likes them. But I like completing things even more. And as it happens, real-world considerations have made that something of a priority. You see, I borrow this book from the library where I work, on the campus where I live, at the college from which, assuming that all goes well with my finals, I will be graduating in a month. So, in order to get through these, I have to at the very least shoot these episodes pretty quickly and more or less in quick succession. I'm going to try to splice in some other things, but expect to see a lot of this in the next couple of months. Sorry. So, without further ado, I give you the last chapter of the first section of this book. Don't worry, there are only 2 sections. Odd Shots from Ambush. And now at last a final turn, for those whose stirring thoughts still burn, to be expressed, a varied troop, who know us well, a worthy group, who see us at our work and play, and are entitled now to say just who is who and what is what. We leave to them the final shot. Are there any more men in the audience who wish to speak? There is still time for a few more opinions. Let's have them. Get in line, gentlemen, and take your turn. If you've ever spent 5 minutes worrying because you don't look like the long-legged, incredibly glamorous girls in the pictures in popular fiction magazines, cheer up. Even the artists who draw those girls don't think they're the final embodiment of female perfection. Ask an artist what constitutes a good-looking girl, and if you think he's going to give you a table of measurements and a talk on classic features, you're doomed to disappointment. No matter what standardized examples of beauty they may draw, illustrators seem to be just like other men when it comes to choosing their own girls. Take, for instance, these combined thoughts of 3 successful magazine artists. All this talk about ideal proportions doesn't mean a thing. There is no rule of thumb for beauty. You might just as well say there's only one good color as try to confine beauty to a special type. It isn't classic features, but odd faces that have the arresting quality which delights the eye. Few portrait painters care to make studies of conventionally beautiful women for that very reason. They prefer the fascination of the unusual. A piquant nose, interesting cheekbones, compelling eyes, or a fine forehead may redeem a whole face and give it a character it would not have if it were uniformly perfect. Anything is beautiful to the person who is emotionally affected by it. Your figure? You might be tall or short, curved or slender, and still be desirable, provided you are well-proportioned, have animation, and move with a sense of rhythm. A woman should have a sort of upspringing vitality about her, should look as though she were lifted from the heels. Here is a point women should think more about. They're always referring to beauty as though it were discernible only through the eye. After all, there are 4 other senses besides sight, and at least 3 of them register feminine charm or the lack of it. A woman's skin and hair should look inviting to the touch. Her cleanness and freshness and fragrance should satisfy the sense of smell. And above all things, her voice should satisfy the ear. Another gentleman who helps to shape our taste in pulchritude is the enterprising head of the model agency which supplies those lovely ladies who find their way via the drawing board and camera to our national magazines, turning up in our favorite ads as well as our favorite fiction. Who is better qualified as a beauty judge than this keen-eyed young man who sees hundreds of outstandingly attractive girls pass through his offices every week? He says, the type most in demand at present is the girl with a look of natural breeding, what studios call the Park Avenue type. She should be about 5 feet 9 in shoes, with proportions to fit a size 14. Perfect features are not necessary, but there must be something which registers consistent charm. Good posture and bearing are very important. First thing I ask a prospect to do is to walk across the room, look at herself in a mirror, come back and sit down. If she can do this easily, quietly, without fidgeting or twitching lips or fingers, she dominates the situation. We call it poise, and it counts. Clothes sense is good too, a certain flair that hasn't anything to do with the price of the garment. Even the average woman could be an excellent dress model in her own set if she would concentrate more on her posture, her carriage, her feet, hands, and head. A tilt of the head usually straightens the shoulders and lightens the step. It makes a better-looking person. A newcomer with a flexible disposition is better than an opinionated old hand. Hair should be subordinated to face, a true frame. Hands are hard to find. For photographing, they should be smooth, without visible knuckles, liquid, and fit into a 6 or 6 1/4 glove. Incidentally, you may have thought of these girls as having an easy, enviable life, a kind of butterfly existence, flitting from one festivity to another. Nothing could be further from the truth. Their lives are almost as rigorous as those of the Hollywood stars, who must also be at their best to face a battery of cameras. Late nights and fancy foods would leave telltale marks to be picked up instantly by the camera, even though they were barely discernible to the naked eye. So it's early to bed for the professional beauties, and plain eating. Light luncheons are the invariable rule: a sandwich and milk, or a vegetable plate, or a salad and baked potato. A regular schoolgirl diet. This keeps the skin clear, the weight down, and prevents the stuffed, dull afternoon feeling that no model can afford to have, especially if she has to stand on her feet for hours posing or parading. The girls watch their weights and pounce on the slightest hint of a bulge before it gets a real start. Without exception, they wear a foundation garment of some sort. No sloppiness for them. The old idea of the uncontrolled figure with plenty of sway is out. Toes straight forward, no waddling. They study the walk of actresses and other models whom they admire and work for perfection. Here is another gentleman whose profession requires him to be an expert, impersonal judge of good looks. When all is said and done, a painter can idealize you, a theatrical producer can flatter you with lights and colors, but the photographer has to take you as he finds you. His relentless, truth-telling apparatus records the real you forever. He must get the most out of you by recognizing your good points and presenting them favorably to his lens. The photographer who contributed the following expression of opinion is outstanding in the fashion field. He also has the distinction of being married to a recognized beauty, which gives him double claim to a hearing. The camera offers complete proof of the fact that beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. Over and over again, I've had the experience of photographing a girl who was generally accepted as unusually pretty, only to have the picture turn out to be quite commonplace. You think of a girl's twinkling eyes, good coloring, and sparkling personality. She's darned attractive. Until the camera shows it up, you don't notice that she has a wide nose. The camera only approves of perfect proportions, which are actually the least important part of the beauty, unless a woman is going to pose professionally. The prettiest women you know might be a total loss photographically. Fortunately, men aren't like cameras. They record with the heart and imagination, as well as the eye. For a professional model, even a superb figure and fine features aren't enough. There has to be grace of movement and instinct for posing naturally, not affectedly. Flexibility and intelligence are as necessary as a Grecian nose. The camera likes long-legged girls because they give the effect of exaggerated height so popular in fashion pictures. But it doesn't like too many curves. Rounded girls become positively opulent after the camera has added 10 pounds to their natural weight. What do I especially like about women? I like eyes wide apart. I like sincerity. I like women's hats, provided they're either smartly amusing or flatteringly beautiful. Anything in between is inexcusably dull. Most of all, I like women who bear their bodies proudly, who are not self-conscious about their flesh, who seem somehow more clothed when they're naked than coarse women do when they're dressed. Dancing is undeniably a social asset. Many girls' claim to popularity is based on her ability to dance well. It's fun, for you, and for your partner if you know what you're about. Here is counsel from an authority. You can be a good dancer no matter what size you are, provided you learn a few simple rules. Keep your feet together. Don't straddle. Watch the women at the next dance you go to and you'll see what I mean. Swing from your hips, not your knees. If your partner seems to be walking on your feet most of the time, it probably isn't his fault at all. You're swinging from the knees and taking such short steps he can't help it. A pendulum-like swing from the hip gives flexibility. Knee action has no place on the dance floor. Try a longer step. Look out for the woman who tries to dominate you on the dance floor. Not only is she a tiresome partner, but she'll likely try to boss you through life. Don't drag your arm like a meat sack. No man wants to carry you around the floor. Few of them have enough strength anyway. Successful dancing is based on coordinated effort. If you want to do a solo, take up tap dancing. Don't say, I have no sense of rhythm. Everyone has rhythm, although it may be buried way down deep and need awakening. Tall women look better doing ballroom dances, but the little women come into their own in the Latin dances, the tangos and rumbas. More and more doctors are prescribing dancing, and taking their own medicine too. It's a great nerve regulator, as well as being a happy form of exercise. Middle-aged women are finding their lost youth in dancing. One 70-year-old couple has more fun than anyone I know. The wife said, I'm enjoying it all I can now because when I get old, I may not enjoy it. It is a rare man who is keenly interested in women's clothes. It is an even more rare one who understands them and whose judgment concerning them is superlatively good. It is a pleasure, therefore, to bring into the picture a gentleman whose fashion opinion is of the highest value. As editor of a conspicuously successful style magazine, he has been something of a dress dictator for thousands of women. Out of his wide experience, he gives us these pertinent thoughts. Don't hide in your clothes. Women are always trying to conceal themselves, in unnecessary draperies, behind frills, fur bellows, and artificial flowers. It is a feminine trait to avoid coming out in the open. Observe the cat, who never sits in the middle of the room. It is a good protective instinct, but it doesn't make for smart dressing. The first thing to do is to eliminate. When I meet a woman, I automatically check her costume over to see how many decorative superfluities could be discarded. Chic lies in getting rid of all non-contributing gadgets. The less there is from the waist up, the better. If there's going to be a lot of anything, let it be in a great whirl of fabric below the waist. The swing skirt is graceful and flattering. No wonder peasant costumes are so becoming and romantic with their tight bodices and full skirts. This instinct for concealment doesn't confine itself to dresses. Women hide under strange hats. They disguise themselves with elaborate coiffures. Even the recent vogue for sunglasses was more than half prompted, I believe, by the desire to be hidden. These glamour glims are only a new form of the old feminine device, the fan. Women have always liked to peer out from a protective shelter. You can measure a woman's sophistication by her simplicity in clothes, her self-consciousness by her ruffles. Every woman ought to have at least one tailored suit. Unless you have an extensive wardrobe, don't go in for novelty touches at any time. Take a hint from the men. Men's clothes look well longer because their value is in their fabric and cut. There is no straining after strange styles. Watch for these things. 1. Good fabric. 2. Flattering cut. 3. Restraint in design and restraint in material, except in the skirt. Color should not be used as a refuge either. It takes more courage not to wear color than to wear it. I believe that colors should follow the seasons of life. In youth, light spring colors are charming. In the 30s, choose summer colors. Later, the autumn tones. By the time she is a grandmother, the smart woman should stick to wintry silvers, lavenders, and frosty white, with maybe just a dash of color occasionally, like a scarlet berry under the snow, to show she knows what she's doing. Hair should fit the head and face. Women are doing better now that short hair is universal. Hats have to fit. They can't be anchored to a nest of hair. Novelty shoes, like novelty gloves, are only for the woman who has so many changes of costume she can now and again indulge in a sensational departure. The girdled figure is better than the natural figure, no matter how good. Dresses need unbroken lines to show them off to advantage. Your flesh shouldn't be ballooning about, but controlled, which does not mean it should be molded to look like cement. The safest way to buy clothes is to put yourself into the hands of recognized authorities and let them have their way. Not necessarily high-priced designers. There are plenty of good-looking clothes coming out of department stores these days. And if you must hide behind something, let it be a nosegay of fresh flowers. Certainly this gentleman should be interested in us, since his business is so closely tied up with the intimacies of our lives. Our parties, our babies, our debuts, our operations, our romances. A successful florist not only sells flowers, but is also an artist, sometimes even a poet. What does he learn about flowers? And women? The modern woman often knows more about flowers than her own florist. She may be a member of a garden club and be as familiar with Latin names as with bridge terms. She's imaginative, too, about color combinations and special arrangements. But that doesn't mean she knows how to select a suitable corsage for herself. Too often the small woman pins a lavish display of orchids on her chest and thinks it gives her distinction, not realizing it only makes her look insignificant. The orchid is a wonderful flower, but it is too big, too voluptuous for a tiny woman. She would do better with gardenias. Carnations and violets are satisfactory for daytime wear. They're too heavy for evening. The most critical women refuse to have their corsages adorned with ribbons, ferns, and other elaborations. But even these fastidious women sometimes wear their flowers upside down, which is an offense to style and nature. No flower was meant to be worn with its head hanging down. If you have been offending in this way, try turning the flowers around and see how much more alive they look. Flowers ought to look at home and happy on the women who are wearing them. He is a member of a new profession. He belongs to that efficiently organized group of young men who furnish escort service for social occasions. Do you want a partner for the dance? A companion for the theater? A strong male arm on which to be bowed around to nightclubs? The professional escort is your man, at so much per hour. He is a highly reputable person, and you will have to be too to avail yourself of his services. What kind of women does he see, and what does he think of them? Most women are nervous the first time they have a professional escort. They take great pains to assure us that this is an unaccustomed adventure. They chatter nervously, or they may take a drink to relieve the tension. It is our job to reassure them, to fall so naturally into conversation that in a minute or two they've forgotten all about its being a business venture. From then on, the evening is just like any other blind date, the sort you might have if you were taking out your best friend's sister, whom you'd never met before. Most of the women want to dress up. They approach the evening in a party spirit, and they like to dance. I suppose that's why they call on us. The young ones want to dance intermittently, the old ones persistently. I believe that's because some of the middle-aged women have taken up dancing for exercise as well as pleasure, and they want to make a really good job of the evening. Stout women are often the best dancers, especially among the mature women. They have a kind of light-footedness that makes them easy to manage. Often a woman starts the evening thinking she wants to make a round of half a dozen restaurants and clubs, but usually 2 or 3 are the most we cover in an evening. If you're having a good time in one place, it seems a waste of time and money to leave it and run somewhere else. Our clients couldn't be more pleasant. They're usually intelligent women, and they treat us wonderfully. They try to choose places we want to go as much as they do themselves. They're solicitous about our food, they make every effort to be congenial conversationalists, they dress themselves as smartly as possible so that we're proud to be seen with them, and they remember that we have to go to business the next day and don't insist on our staying up until all hours of the night. In fact, I often wonder if the average husband, fiancé, or friend gets as good a break as we do. If he does, he has nothing to complain about. If he doesn't, well, the women ought to give the matter some thought and change their methods, for it's a sure bet that men respond to consideration just as much as women do. Glamour and the stage have always been synonymous, and for a good reason. Ladies behind the footlights take on an allure that is not often found in everyday life. Many a young man has eaten his heart out with envy of the actor who is playing opposite a fascinating leading lady. How does the actor himself feel about his lady, and about those other ladies who are sitting in the audience? Every actor likes to play to women. They're more responsive than men, easier to please. More often than not, we pick an individual in the audience and play to her. It may be because she's beautiful, intelligent, or has the air of being flatteringly interested. At any rate, she becomes our inspiration, and we put our show on for her, whether she knows it or not. We're thrilled when she gives us her undivided attention, hurt or annoyed when her gaze wanders and she giggles or whispers with her friends. Bad theater manners offend us as much as they do the audience. In an actress, the greatest asset is flexibility of mood, an ability to change her tempo according to the needs of the occasion. The glamour which she projects over the footlights is not always visible on the stage or behind it. Indeed, I think too many theatrical women have a tendency to slump in appearance when there is no audience demand being made on them. Non-professional women can console themselves with the thought that they are often more attractive at close quarters than the actress whom they've been envying. Men of the theater are more critical of makeup than the average man. They know what wonders it can perform, rightly used, and they're sorry when they see a woman applying it carelessly. Women on the stage learn to use their hands, their voices to advantage. They learn how to enter a room, how to walk well. That comes partly from good direction, but even more from observation. Any girl can learn in the same way. In fact, the clever woman who borrows the best tricks of the stage without relinquishing her own personality becomes someone to reckon with. And that's it for the chapter. You may be wondering, what about the what to do about it section? Well, as it happens, the remaining 5 chapters of this book are in a second part called What Else to Do About It, where each one is focused on a specific flaw and how to correct it. So it would be a little superfluous to put it here. At any rate, not much to say about this, except that this was kind of an odd choice on which to end the first part of the book. I mean, I'm not saying there was a theme already. I mean, it kind of leapt from topic to topic, and the grouping wasn't always clear. But the decision to end on miscellaneous just seems a little disordered. Of course, I could be wrong. Anyway, we'll be getting back to this sooner than most of you would probably like, and in the meantime, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Ciao.